there?
I'm just looking for, my mask. Got it. Hey everybody, how you doing? It's James, JT at the movies, back again in my movie space upstairs here for another movie vlog. Today I'm going to talk about 1994's The Mask. So this film is loosely based on the Dark Horse comic series. And New Line Cinema, when they wanted to adapt this, they started looking at it in 1989 and initially wanted to set this up as one of their new horror franchises like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. And when director Chuck Russell came aboard, he looked at the source material and had found that it was actually a little too graphic and a little too violent for his liking, and decided that he would actually try and sort of loosen it up a little bit and make it a bit more fun and a bit more comedic. And of course, when Jim Carrey was cast as the lead, Stanley Ipkiss, that only played into his strengths. So in this film we follow Stanley Ipkiss, played fantastically by Jim Carrey. Stanley's a mild-mannered chap who unfortunately in every aspect of his life seems to get walked all over by his friends, family and peers. The only person who really seems to have his back throughout the film is his best friend at the bank, Charlie, and even that's in question at times. At the bank at the start of the film we're introduced to Tina Carlisle, played in her first breakout role by Cameron Diaz. She's there under the pretenses of opening a new account, but actually she's there to case the bank out because her boyfriend at the time is gangster Dorian Tyrell, who's the film's main villain. He's planning on robbing the bank at a later stage with his gang so that he can break away from the local mafia and run the town himself. Stanley, of course, is really nervous around Tina and doesn't really know what to say, makes a fool of himself, but she seems quite endeared to him anyway. Charlie decides that what Stanley needs is a night on the town and that the pair of them should visit the hottest new club in town, the Coco Bongo. At the club, due to a misunderstanding, Stanley gets embarrassed, he gets kicked out of the club, and unfortunately Tina, who's the club singer, sees all this. On his way home, he's upset, he's depressed about how the evening's gone and his car breaks down. Just when things couldn't get any worse, Stanley thinks he sees somebody drowning in the river. He jumps into the river to try and save the person, only to learn that it's a pile of rubbish that's washed in from the bay. In the rubbish is the titular artefact itself, the mask. After finding the mask in the bay, Stanley returns home, and after a brief and horrible encounter with his landlady, he retires to his own flat. It's there that he watches the news and sees an interview about how masks are worn metaphorically in society and how people choose to present their best selves in public. This inspires Stanley to go to the mirror and joke around with the artefact that he's got and put it on. It's there that he puts it on and learns of its supernatural powers. It gives him the powers of a superhero. He's got lightning fast speed, he's bulletproof, he can change his appearance at will, apart from his bright green face of course. He can impersonate other people. He's just got any skill that you could think of. He can create objects out of thin air. Stanley decides that he's going to right a few wrongs in his own life with his newfound confidence whilst wearing the mask. He terrorises his landlady, has some fun with a horrible gang in an alleyway, and then returns to a car garage that we see him at the start of the film to terrorise the owners after they've quoted him for work that doesn't need doing on his own car. He attacks them with tools and with car parts that are in the garage. Later on in the film, Stanley decides that he can no longer go after Tina as himself because she wouldn't be interested, but that the mask is just the kind of man that she'd be interested in. He puts the mask on again, robs the bank before the gangsters can get there to do it, and then proceeds to the Coco Bongo Club where he dances with Tina, plays with the band, and just causes absolute mayhem. At this point, Dorian, the lead villain of the film, is introduced to the mask, and they have a bit of a standoff before the cops turn up. The lead cop in the film, Lieutenant Kellaway, starts to suspect that Stanley Ipkiss, the mild-mannered bank clerk, might actually be the mask, although he doesn't understand the supernatural elements behind it and believes it just to be a rubber mask. The film goes on from there. Dorian becomes interested in capturing the mask because he wants the money from the bank heist. When they finally capture Stanley, he learns that the mask has supernatural powers and decides that he's going to use it for himself. This all leads to a fantastic climax in the Coco Bongo Club where Stanley finally has to use his own nerve and his own wit to outwit the mask worn by Dorian. The film ends with all's well that ends well. Stanley gets the girl, is let off for his past crimes, and they chuck the mask into the bay. Comedically, Milo the dog and Charlie, Stanley's best friend, both dive into the bay after the mask as they want the powers that it has to offer. This film was initially supposed to set up a franchise, and there was going to be a sequel just a couple of years later. Nintendo magazine even had a contest where people could write in and enter to have a walk-on part in the next film. Unfortunately, Jim Carrey didn't enjoy doing sequels after having a bad experience with Ace Ventura 2 and opted not to do the film. The sequel stayed in development hell for over a decade and then was completely rebooted with Son of the Mask in 2005. That film was a commercial and critical failure that had, apart from Ben Stein as the psychologist, no returning cast from the original film. There is talk now in 2020 that the Mask might make a cameo appearance in Space Jam 2 as a referee, and that potentially Warner Brothers is interested in doing a soft reboot/sequel to the Mask with Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz returning. I personally would be very much up for that. I would love to have seen a great sequel back in Jim Carrey's prime in the 90s. I thought that this film, more so than some of the other films that he did at the time, Dumb and Dumber and Ace Ventura, would have been ripe for a sequel. I thought that there was so much more that you could do with this. They did explore it further with the animated series as well, which is actually quite a good follow-on from the film. It does sort of ignore some of the rules set up by the film, but then again, that's just to make the cartoon work. I absolutely adore this film and always have done. You can probably guess that by the fact that I've invested in the replica of The Mask. I hope that they do make a sequel, but I hope that they take their time with it and do the right thing rather than just rush to make money. I'm going to give this film a 7.5 out of 10. It's by no means perfect, but it is a great little comedy with some thrilling elements to it and a fantastic cast. You've got Peter Green, Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz there, and a whole host of supporting characters that are absolutely fantastic. If you've not seen this film, of course I recommend checking it out. It's absolutely one of my favourite comedies of all time. The comic series itself isn't bad as well. It's much more violent. There's even a crossover where it ends up in Gotham City and the Joker ends up wearing it. It's quite an interesting read if you're a fan of the franchise. So folks, thank you very much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it when you watch. If you'd leave us a comment with your thoughts on this film, that'd be absolutely fantastic. If you've liked the video, leave us that little thumbs up. And if you haven't done already and you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe. Hit that little subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and that way you'll be notified anytime I post a video. And guys, of course, while everything's going on in the world at the moment, just take care of yourselves, stay safe, and thank you once again for watching. I'll see you next time.